In June of 2006, Cathy Austin, who was an assembly worker at the CAMI automotive plant in Ingersoll, Ontario, was elected president of her local union, the Canadian Auto Workers Local 88. It was the first time in the history of the CAW that a woman had achieved this position in a major auto assembly plant. Her election was a groundbreaking event, but the ground had been prepared by an informal network of women leading the way.
As we go marching, marching in the beauty of the day, amid darkened kitchens, 1,000 mill-offs gray are touched by all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses.
This film looks at the challenges and opportunities facing women working in assembly and trade jobs in the auto industry, and how they have supported, encouraged, and mentored each other in preparing for and taking leadership.
I'm really proud of the fact that Cathy Austin got elected as our president, which meant that it was the first woman president of a CAW auto industry place. So it was huge. It was awesome.
Having the ability to get somebody like Cathy in as president has made a huge impact, and I think it has set the tone for women mentoring women, because that's what happens. That's how you get into these positions, is because of other women. And I think it's a trickle-down effect. When it happens at the top, it will trickle down below.
Almost every activist in the union can think back to someone who has mentored them. I think every sister in this room can probably think back to somebody that's mentored them. Putting a hand back and pulling me and others along with them, we stand on the shoulders of those women. Cathy had a vision that was, I think, a little bit different than the leaders before her, and people failed to realize was that Cathy had a workers' agenda. Cathy understood what it meant to be part of a diverse union, and that diversity made the union stronger, and as an ally, she was a champion for every issue, not just women, not just gays, not just the queer movement, youth, retirees, people with disabilities, workers of color. Cathy was a champion for all workers and knew that was her role as president, to fulfill that.
Being a woman in the union, I knew I had 3 years, a 3-year term, that my chances of getting reelected were slim, and so I couldn't diddle around. I knew I was going to get one shot at this, and I really wanted to do it in a principled way.
The CAMI plant takes up just over a kilometre of land on the outskirts of Ingersoll in southwestern Ontario. Although the number changes with hirings and layoffs, about 20% of the assembly workers at CAMI are women. And these women are part of a growing CAW tradition of encouraging and mentoring women into leadership positions.
Somebody told me back in the early days, when I was a Girl Guide leader and then became a Girl Guide commissioner, I said, well, I can't do that job because I don't know this and I don't know that and I don't know that. And this woman sat me down. She says, look, Cathy, you just have to be good at drawing. She says, just draw on the talent of people that have those talents, and those skills or that potential. And that's sort of when I started to pay attention to either the skills or the talent that other women or other people have, and the potential.
When and if you get yourself elected to a leadership position, you've got an obligation not to pull up the ladder. You've got an obligation to reach out to other women, to build other women, to give them an opportunity also.
I was fortunate enough to have to work in areas where I was exposed to several women who were already engaged and active in the union. Janet Booker, Cathy Hamill, and definitely Cathy Austin. Cathy Austin was my union rep at one time in assembly, so definitely those were the role models that I had, the women that encouraged me to become involved and engaged.
There's so many women that took time to mentor me as discussion leaders too. Those are the peer educators in the union. And those women took the time to have a cup of tea with me, to have a break with me when they could have been, prepping for their next session or whatever, just to say, have you ever thought about this? Or, read this book. I found this really fascinating. Or just all those things that add up to so much when you look back at it.
Kathy has a very good rapport with young people. So for our junior members, there was an amazing connection. You could see that connection growing and prospering, blooming into something that was really interesting. She brought a lot of the young people's ideas into her work as the president, and made sure that they weren't left out.
My name's Colleen Wake, and I'm in the Assembly Department, and I work on the final line. I've been there since 2005, and we put a bunch of the interior parts into the car. We work in teams, so we all have, there's about 7 or 8 jobs on each team, and each person rotates through those. So they do a little bit of everything. They're not doing the same thing all day. They do the same thing for about 2 hours and then move on to something else. As far as mentors go, to me, that's someone who has educated me and helped me learn and answered questions for me when I needed something clarified. So for me, that would be definitely Kathy Austin. She was an amazing president, and she really was active and made sure that she talked to everybody that asked. Another would be Kim Crump. And anytime I've had a question about protocol or anything like that, or just kind of how to go about doing something, those are 2 of the women for me as mentors who have helped me along.
From a historical perspective, women working in automobile assembly and doing the same jobs that men do is a new phenomenon. Until quite recently, these jobs were carried out only by men, and it can be difficult for women and men to make the adjustment.
One of the issues that comes up is when women come into a workplace where they are less represented than men is understanding or learning that this is a different culture than what I'm used to, and then figuring out how do I fit into that culture where I don't get to say what the culture is.
We didn't make the rules in the workplace. They were created many, many years ago before women were in the workplace. We come into the Monopoly game with a Parcheesi board, and we don't always understand exactly what's going on, but to have a mentor who's been there ahead of you, who knows the game, who knows the way it gets played, is just invaluable. They can show you the ropes, they can show you which, when you're going down the stream, which rock to jump from to get to the next one. And it just helps you succeed.
We all start off with the idea that the best way to fit into the culture is to be one of the boys. That usually doesn't last for very long. I mean, it makes sense at the beginning, but after a while you realize, no, I actually can change this culture a little bit and make it more about me and people like me. It doesn't have to be all about one group.
When you come into a male-dominated environment, you can feel very much like a cat in a doghouse. And you just have to fake it till you make it, because there's no rule book that goes with the job.
We've got an obligation as women, when we get in those positions, not to act like men. That women's voices are different, that our stories are different, our experiences are different, and sometimes the solutions are different for women.
To me, it feels like there's a little bit of an identity crisis for women in terms of, more and more in our education programs, women say, well, I'm not a feminist. And then when you talk to them and you say, well, okay, so you don't believe in equality? So you're not interested in actually having the same opportunities as men? And they go, oh no, wait a second. Of course I believe in equality. Of course I think I have the right to be paid equally. Of course I want a harassment-free workplace. And then when you say, well, that means you're a feminist, it's a surprise. There's feminism, being a feminist has been turned into something dirty and ugly.
I think that a lot of women my age and younger take for granted the work that it's taken to get us here. Because for me, it was like, feminism, who needs that? Like, things aren't like that, And to learn where the women's movement came from, what it is and where it's going, really opened my eyes to the fact that we do need that, and it plays a really important role in society. And all of the women and the young women and the kids should know where that came from, why things are the way they are.
Roxy Baker, the first woman elected to the national executive of the CAW, was one of the pioneers for women's rights in the auto industry. She and Mary Strauss were responsible for many changes in the collective agreement.
What I have here is a collective agreement from 1955, and it refers to, in the seniority clause, about a master male and female seniority list. And that's how your seniority worked, was according to those two lists.
First of all, it's important to keep in mind that the union wasn't responsible for hiring. However, when General Motors introduced sex-based seniority lists, it meant that all of the women would be placed on one employment list, and all of the men, many more men, would be placed on another employment list. And so if they wanted to, if they were going to fire a woman, she would be off that seniority list. And even though she had maybe 20 years of employment with the company, she couldn't retain her job. Even though the company could have 3 months ago hired a man, because he would be on a separate seniority list, that didn't matter. So women really suffered as a result of these separate seniority lists, being on a separate female seniority list.
Roxy Baker and Mary Strauss fought to have childcare subsidies and language regarding adoptions and sexual harassment put into collective agreements. The name of the childcare centre at the CAW's Family Education Centre in Port Elgin celebrates their work.
90% women in the plant. Of course, all the top-paying jobs held by men. But lots of times we would have a young woman who would be disciplined because her babysitter phoned that morning and was sick and couldn't take the child or whatever. And we just decided that daycare was really a big issue in that particular plant, and I think any plant with a lot of young women in it.
In our work for years, and it continues today, we don't make advancements by keeping quiet. We have to keep the issues front and center.
Often you're criticized for being the mouth or whatever, but if you wouldn't bring it up, it wouldn't get brought up. Enough of this shoveling stuff under the carpet.
And I think if you look at every advancement that's been made, it's because that issue has been fought, and maybe fought for a long time, but usually in the end people see it your way and see the good in it.
When I got into CAMI, I'd never been part of a union. I'd never been really around a union. I saw a little bit of unionism at Agriculture Canada, but not very much. I was a summer student there. So getting involved in CAMI and seeing what a union was completely new to me. I went to my first union meeting and I couldn't believe what was going on. I saw everyone working together and, you know, all this education and sharing of information. I'm thinking, okay, this is interesting. And Kathy Austin, Ann McMeekin, Linda Smith, and Vince Nichols pushed me to, you know, go to some union meetings, get involved a little bit. So lo and behold, this world was opened up to me with social justice and people that cared about other laborers that I had never seen before.
The union is a wonderful vehicle for making positive change in a whole different kinds of ways. We just had so many opportunities to make a positive impact in working with other community groups and stuff that I just thought, like, if I could, you know, manage to get the position of president, you know, the possibilities are endless for our local in the community and to grow as a local as well.